Hey, thanks for checking out my channel. Today I'm going to talk about heart rate training. I want to talk about why I think investing in a heart rate monitor is probably one of the first things you should do as you start getting serious about your training. I'll talk about how to calculate your zones and just make sure that you're doing your heart rate training as effectively as possible. I do think that a heart rate monitor is probably the best investment you'll make when it comes to your training. To be able to have some feedback allows you to gauge what a truly easy run is and what it looks like to be in your different zones, and it allows you to just have an effective run every time you go out the door. Just recently I came across somebody who said, train your heart and your legs will follow. And I just think that's really good advice. I've also been telling myself consistent heart rate over consistent pace, because I'll get caught up on the pace sometimes on my runs and try to make sure that I'm hitting those same splits for every mile, when really it's more about the heart rate. If I'm trying to hit a certain pace and it's making me go out of my zone for my heart rate, that's not really benefiting me the same way that it would if I was just focused on the heart rate being consistent for those intervals. Because it requires an extra step and an extra piece of equipment, heart rate training is not the easiest thing to commit to initially. I will admit that I actually learned about heart rate training years ago and had a hard time committing to it. But one of the things I did wrong initially when I first started doing the heart rate training was the zones. I think there's two ways to calculate out your zones. I think the typical generic way requires less math and is very basic as far as percentages and everything, but it's not as accurate, and ultimately it makes your zones lower, so it's making you have to run slower than you would if you were to calculate them this other way that I'm about to tell you about, and that's using your heart rate reserve. And so your heart rate reserves takes into account your resting heart rate. And so there's a little, it's not difficult, there's a little formula of just subtracting your heart rate in order to get your heart rate zones. And I'll put a chart up on the screen so that makes a little more sense. But once I started doing that, it allowed me to run fast enough for those easy runs to where I didn't find it to be unbearable. Heart rate training, specifically low heart rate training, does require patience and a certain level of trust in the process. Another thing worth noting about heart rate monitor training is that it kind of allows you to have a safety net and prevent you from overtraining. So if you're going out on easy runs and you're keeping your heart rate low and you're not having trouble doing that, then you should be handling your volume pretty well. If the opposite is the case, if you're having a really hard time keeping that heart rate down, which is what I've had in the past, then there's probably a good chance that you're overtraining. That heart rate monitor is going to give you feedback on how your body's reacting to all your training. So it's really beneficial to have that as a gauge. The nice thing about the heart rate training is that ultimately you do end up getting to go faster for your easy runs. So if you commit to staying in that low heart rate zone, your paces are gonna drop and drop as time goes on. You might not see that in the first couple of months, but if you stick to it, you're gonna see those results. That's all I've got for today's video. Thanks for checking it out. Thanks for hanging out with me. And I hope you got something from it. If you have questions or comments, please leave them under the video. I'd love to continue the conversation. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.